Tanjiro is at his house ready to leave. His mother approaches him while she wipes his charcoal from his face. She recommends him not to go because of the cold temperatures, but he insists since he wants to give them a good new year. His younger siblings approach him and want to join him on his travels, but the mother does not accept and warns them that they cannot since he is faster, and it is not safe. Shigeru runs to his brother and hugs him tight to convince him. Even Hanako promises to behave well. Despite this, Tanjiro doesn't let them go, and promises to buy them delicious food. They finally change their sad faces and accept. After, the mother thanks Tanjiro's hard work and dedication. Tanjiro asks his brother, Takeo, to cut a lot of wood, although Takeo gets sad since it was the plan for the two of them, but it didn't happen. Tanjiro strokes his brother's hair, but he gets annoyed especially when Shigeru tells him that he is blushing. They all laugh at him, then say goodbye and wait for him to be back. As Tanjiro heads to his destination, he comes across his sister Nezuko, who had taken Rokita for a nap, thus diverting him from seeing Tanjiro leaving as he would have cried to go along with him. He strokes his hair and leaves. He walks while thinking deeply about life. Finally, he arrives. He runs into an old woman, who is surprised to see him working in the cold weather as he could catch a cold. Tanjiro calmly tells her that it's not a big deal. He asks if she needs any charcoal. Suddenly a man asks for a refill, followed by other women. Without moving from his place, he is surprised by the cries of a young man who asks for help to prove his innocence in front of his mother, who blamed him of breaking her dish. He shows him the broken plate and asks to smell it. Tanjiro leans down. He sniffs the broken plate and recognizes the smell of a cat. The boy feels relieved, and the mother is finally convinced of his innocence, but the son is still outraged. She did not believe him. A third man calls Tanjiro for help with his luggage. On his way back, it became dark and very late, but he was happy he sold out all the charcoal. But suddenly a man calls him to spend the night in his house as it's dangerous. Tanjiro wasn't convinced until the man mentioned about the demons showing up, then he accepted. Once inside, he is given food to eat. He thanks him for dinner, then drinks his tea and breaks the silence with Mr. Saburo. The young man asks about the demons and what he meant. The man prepares the bed, while he calmly and distantly answers that there have always been demons and that is why going out at night should be avoided. The man tells him that it is time to sleep and that he can leave early in the morning. Tanjiro, laying on his bed, asks Mr. Saburo again if demons can enter houses. Mr. Saburo, while smoking, answers that they can enter. He responds asking how is it possible, as they would eat everyone? He persists asking. The demon slayers protect us by killing as many as possible, answers Mr. Saburo. He tells him it's time to sleep, while he turns off the lights. Tanjiro falls into a deep sleep. He wants to bring his brothers to keep Mr. Saburo company and not fear the demons, although he suddenly remembers that his grandmother used to tell him the same stories when he was little before she died. The morning arrives. Tanjiro thanks and says goodbye to Mr. Saburo. Walking back home, he began to smell a strong scent. Tanjiro lost his sanity when he saw his sister Nezuko and Rokita laying on the floor. He ran towards them. He tried to wake them up, although there was no response. As he looked inside the house, the rest of his family can be found. They also were laying unresponsive on the floor. Tanjiro runs with his sister Nezuko on his back, since she is the only one who may survive. He insists on running even though he is sore from the air penetrating his lungs, but he is hopeful of saving his sister. She starts to move. As she opens her mouth, fangs appear. Tanjiro panics, resulting in him losing his balance. They both fall from a distance. He screams in fear but realizes that he survives thanks to the density of the ice. He immediately started searching with his eyes for Nezuko, until he saw her, in an unrecognizable state. He ran towards her, offering to carry her on his back, but she attacked him angrily. He falls to the ground from her force. He protects himself with an axe, which she bites between her teeth. As he stares into her eyes, he realizes that his sister has turned into a demon. Her eyes were filled with rage. There he remembered Mr. Saburo's words, and the beautiful memories of his sister. He told himself that Nezuko is human and not an eating man demon. Meanwhile, she became bigger and stronger. Tanjiro cries as he blames himself for not being there and saving them. His last hope is to save Nezuko, but she is getting stronger. The tension increased. He told her not to give up or lose control while they both fought. Until she started crying and her tears touched Tanjiro's face. A stranger came running with a sword, as he tries to hit her. Tanjiro acts fast and moves her out the way. The sword only manages to cut Tanjiro's hair. The wind blows hard, and they both roll around embracing each other. Nezuko returns to her human size. Tanjiro, surprised, wonders who the guy is. The swordsman asks him why he protected her, and Tanjiro replies that she is his sister, and he wants to help her heal. The man charges at them. Within seconds he takes her from Tanjiro's arms and has her under his control. He explains his duty is to kill any demon in his sight. He freaked out and explained furiously that his sister never hurt anyone, and that his family was killed by someone else since there was a different sense in the house. The swordsman insists that it is too late, as her wounds were exposed to demon plasma. He continues to explain that if he had not arrived before, she would have eaten him. Tanjiro challenges his views, highlighting she knows he is her big brother, therefore would never hurt him. He promises to bring her back to being human again. However, the swordsman tells him demons can never return to be normal humans again. He screams for an opportunity to save his sister with his arms stretched at full length and promises to find out who is responsible for killing his family. While the swordsman brought his sword closer to Nezuko's neck. He screams loudly so he doesn't kill her and begs not to take his final family member away from him. He prostrates himself and cries for his sister continuously. But the swordsman yells at him for his weakness and blames him for the death of his family due to his vulnerability. He goes on telling him that weak people have no place and no options in life. He points his sword toward him, explaining his sister's capture was down to Tanjiro turning his back towards him. Tanjiro cries uncontrollably. The man thinks of his pain of losing his family and her sister becoming a demon. As he brings his sword closer and inserts it in her chest, her brother gets up and screams, throwing a stone at him. However, he quickly blocks it. He runs towards them, throwing another stone but missing again. The guy slams his sword on his back. He falls unconscious. Nezuko is shocked and moved by her brother. The guy wonders where the hatchet is until he sees it flying near his head, sticking into the tree. Surprised, he thinks about the strategy that Tanjiro used, which was to take him down after he had already been knocked out. Nezuko suddenly kicks the swordsman. She runs to her brother and puts her arm out to protect him. The swordsman is surprised she is protecting him, and instead turns her attention to him. She charges at him while they battle it out. He karate chops her to the neck, leaving her unconscious. Meanwhile, Tanjiro is in a deep dream thinking of his family. His mother apologizes to him and asks him to take care of Nezuko. He suddenly wakes up in tears as he lays next to her. The swordman surprises him and advises him to take Nezuko to the Sagiri Mountain and find a man called Sakonji Urokodaki, on behalf of Gyutamioka. He adds that Nezuko is fine as long as it is cloudy and never she should be exposed to the sunlight. After he disappears, Tanjiro starts to pray. He then holds her hands and starts walking. As the sun shines, Tanjiro finds himself in a harvesting field. He asks the harvester for a basket, straw, and bamboo. The man agreed even though he said the basket had holes. He wanted to pay him. The man angrily insisted that he didn't have to, but even so, Tanjiro was more headstrong and forcefully managed to put the money in his hand. He stormed off, leaving the man in extreme pain with his hand. He arrives at a cave, and calls his sister Nezuko. For an instant he sees the cave empty and panics, until he sees her head slowly popping out of a hole. He looks at her baffled as to why she dug the hole. He wonders if she has transformed from a demon to a mole. Her face didn't portray she was happy, although the only clear thing he knows is that she is desperately trying to avoid the sun. He asks her to wait. He goes outside and fixes the basket. He finally enters the cave and asks her to get inside the basket since he needs to continue moving during the day, and she must accompany him. She gets in but doesn't fit. He cannot believe how quickly she has grown up as he reminisces when she was just a child. He asks if she is able to shrink in size while patting her on the back. She leaps into the basket, managing to fit inside. He feels immensely proud, stroking her on the head. Tanjiro walks through the forest. His scyther is wrapped up in the basket on his back. He is approached by a woman and a small child. She doesn't recommend him going up the mountain as it is dangerous when nighttime approaches. He tells her he will be fine and thanks her for giving him directions to go to Mountain Sagiri. As nighttime reaches, Nezuko is out of the basket. As she holds hands with her brother, they spot a temple. He begins to smell and notices a familiar scent that could indicate someone is in danger. They run quickly to see what is happening. Tanjiro opens the door of the temple. He asks if everyone is okay. His eyes quickly enlarge. He finds a demon devouring some humans. Tanjiro goes into shock and the basket falls on the ground. The demon lets them know that they will have to pay for entering his territory. When Nezuko notices the ketchup, she starts drooling and her eyes change. The demon finishes eating, gets up and tells them that something doesn't seem right about them. He steps closer and asks if they are even human. Quickly the lights go out. The demon drags Tanjiro out of the temple. He acts fast and wounds him in the neck with a hatchet. The demon laughs evilly, highlighting his ability to heal almost instantly. Tanjiro panics as he understands that he is unconquerable. Meanwhile, Nezuko is still in the same position, dribbling like a hungry Rottweiler. The demon jumps on top of Tanjiro and chokes him. The demon warns him that the first time he was lucky, but this time he will rip his neck off. Nezuko's eyes bulge out of her head when she hears her brother in pain. She runs rapidly, casually kicking the demon in the head. Tanjiro begins to panic from what he has just witnessed. The headless demon put his hand towards him. Nezuko however gives him another kick. This time he goes flying into the woods. Tanjiro is in extreme shock. The demon's head begins talking. He is raging that another demon is teaming up with a human. Tanjiro is freaking out, baffled how he is still talking. The demon's body attacks Nezuko. Whilst the head tries to fight Tanjiro, he puts his hatchet in the demon's mouth trying to fight him off. Nezuko is picked up by the demon's body and lashed into the forest. Tanjiro watches on, extremely worried for his sister. The demon wraps his hair around the hatchet. Tanjiro finds the strength to headbutt the demon, sending him flying in the air. He grabs onto the demon's hair, and gives him another headbutt. He flings the hatchet all the way into a tree. The demon is trapped as his hair is wrapped around the hatchet. Tanjiro storms through the forest looking helplessly for Nezuko. He notices them. The demon's body is kicking her continuously. He charges at the demon rugby, tackling him off a cliff. As he fears for his life in mid-air, he is miraculously saved by the hand of his sister, while the demon continues to fall, eventually smashing to the ground, as he is finally defeated. Tanjiro pulls out his knife. He approaches the demon to finish him off. He notices the demon's scent is completely different to what he smelt at his family's house. He begins to panic. Sweat pours down his face. Suddenly, a hand touches him on the shoulder. He jumps in shock. As he turns round, he is faced with a man wearing a mask. The masked man tells him the knife will not do the job. As his mind thinks of other ideas, he notices rocks on the other side. He picks up a rock. He begins to shake as he does not want to destroy the demon using a rock. The demon wakes up looking extremely confused. He tries to swing for Tanjiro with his arms. As the sun approached, it melted the demon away. Tanjiro was stunned how quickly the sun melted the demon. He looks around for Nezuko, but she is nowhere to be seen. He rapidly runs to the temple. He sighs with relief as she is inside hiding from the sun. He then wonders where the masked man disappeared to and begins to search for him. He finds him. The masked man is holding a burial for those who passed away. Tanjiro approaches him. The old man reveals that his name is Sakonji Urokodaki and asks if he is the guy sent from Giyu. Tanjiro confirms the details are correct. Suddenly the man surprises Tanjiro by asking him what he would do if his sister ate a human. Tanjiro remains silent, which causes the man to slap him across the face and tells him that he must be decisive and decide quickly, and reminds him of his mistake of not killing the demon in time. Mr. Urokodaki tells him that he will give him a test to find out if he is suitable to be part of the Demon Slayer Corps. Then he orders him to carry his sister and follow him. They start running. Mr. Urokodaki leads the way with Tanjiro way behind. He is surprised how fast he is and wonders how he still cannot hear his footsteps. As he asks his sister to be patient while she sits in the basket on his back, he has flashbacks from the past of his sister, and how patient she was even when fixing her kimono and not buying another one, putting the needs of her family before hers. This urges him to sprint faster as he promises to make her human again and buy her a beautiful kimono. Finally, they arrive at the house. Tanjiro is sweating and exhausted. He thinks that the test is over, but the man tells him that the test will start with climbing the mountain. His face dropped as he panics. His sister lays at rest. He thanks Sakonji as he promises to take care of his sister while he is gone. The pair of them walk through the forest. Tanjiro hobbles along as he is extremely tired. His feet are in pain. Sakonji turns around. He tells him to find his way back to his home. He vanishes, leaving him all alone. He thought it would be a simple test as he remembers Mr. Urokodaki's scent. As he runs through the forest, he is faced with many traps. The floor caves in and he falls right through it. He lays on the floor in pain. He stands up, only to be hit with a log to be knocked back down. He has to think rapidly as he realizes he will never make it down the mountain if he continues to fall into the traps. He takes deep breaths. He is struggling to breathe due to the thin air. He decides to sprint again as fast as he can in order to make it out alive. He stops for a moment. He uses his sniffing abilities to avoid any further traps. It successfully works as he dodges the traps coming his way as he sprints down the mountain. Unfortunately, he was unable to sniff out the bamboo tree as it slaps him across the face, making him fall again. He thinks of his sister and continues to push on. Meanwhile, Mr. Sakonji is taking care of Nezuko at his home. Suddenly Tanjiro arrives. His face is covered in marks. He falls to his knees as he lets him know he made it down. Mr. Sakonji has a flashback. He remembers when the letter came to him by a bird, where Giyu tells him about the situation of Tanjiro and his sister and the tragedy of their family. He asks him to help them, and especially to train him since Tanjiro has a remarkable ability to smell just like him, and that he and Nezuko are a special kind. Mr. Sakonji finally embraces Tanjiro as his new student.